So this is a 2011 Epiphone Flying V. So what am I doing with a Flying V? I apologize in advance. This is kind of a lengthy story of why I own a Flying V, and I'll be waxing a little bit of nostalgia here, so bear with me or fast forward if you want. Around 1979 or 78, somewhere right around there, I'd been playing acoustic guitar for a couple of years and really wanted an electric guitar. And I didn't have much money. I didn't come from a wealthy family or anything like that. We were very middle class, and anything that I wanted I had to go out and work for and earn. So I was busting tables at the time and doing everything I could to try to scrabble together some money to go out and buy my first electric guitar. So I went over to Uncle Bob's. Uncle Bob's music store in Milwaukee was located on about 67th and Capitol, and was the place to go in the local music scene if you wanted to buy guitars and amplifiers. It was a great little store. It was located in what was probably a little post-war ranch home, and it was packed. They moved a lot of merchandise for that store. So you'd walk in there. There's little like alleyways that you can kind of walk between all the equipment and gear that they had in there. It was just stacked high with Marshall stacks and amps up to the ceiling. And what was probably once a dining room was the guitar area. And they probably had like 75 guitars packed into this little tiny alcove of a room, And they were like three high, hanging on the walls. They were stacked in the corners, leaned up against every amplifier. It was a chaotic scene in that store. But Bob Zanoni, the guy that ran the place, was just a fantastic, fantastic guy. He was so nice to me as a scrawny little kid coming in there and just kind of drooling over guitars and not being able to afford anything. But he took really, really good care of me and was just a really good man. He ran that business with his sons, Bob Jr. and Dennis, and another cast of characters that were in there. And anyway, so I would ride my bike over to Uncle Bob's and drool over the guitars. And I wanted an electric guitar in the worst way, but I didn't know anything about them at all. I just knew that I wanted a solid body electric guitar, and I wanted something a little different than what everybody else was playing. So I'd look at all of them, and after playing them all, the Strats and the Tellys didn't appeal to me. Les Pauls were a little bit out of my price range. I remember there was probably an early 60s Gibson Barney Kessel in there that I really liked a lot, but didn't want a hollow body. I wanted a solid body. And then I saw a Flying V hanging on the wall. It was just like this. It was probably a reproduction of the 58 Flying V, and it was probably a 67, 68 version. And remember back in 78, 79, there was not really a vintage guitar market. So old guitars were just old, And a 67 guitar at that time would have been 12 years old, and didn't have any kind of cachet to it or premium. In fact, you could go in there and buy these old blackface amplifiers, Fender amplifiers for $100, $200, $300. And you could buy Marshall stacks for $300-$400. There was no vintage market at that time. So the old Flying V hanging on there, I really dug the guitar. I liked it a lot. I thought it was a really cool guitar. But I remember thinking to myself, that's kind of radical looking for my first electric guitar, So I ended up buying a 1975 Rickenbacker Model 481 instead of the Flying V. And the Rickenbacker was nice, but it was not, it was good guitar, but it was not really, I was already really a blues head by then. I really got bit by blues music when I was a young teenager and have always just loved it. And the Rickenbacker was not really a blues guitar as I went on further in life. So that's the only guitar I've ever sold is my 75 Rickenbacker. And I kind of regret it because it was a really kind of a cool guitar. But anyway, years and years and years have gone by, and I've always in the back of my mind, I was like, man, I wish I would have bought that Flying V. That was such a cool guitar. And fast forward a lot to about 2016, and a member of this forum that I belong to, an online forum, and the String Network on Facebook, who lives in Madison, put this guitar up for sale, and I thought I have no practical reason whatsoever to buy that guitar, but I did anyway because it's like a cute puppy. So I bought this guitar from Michael in Madison, and it's I like it now. There's been some minor changes to it. The pickups have been upgraded from the stock Epiphones to Gibson 57 Classics, which are really one of my favorite Gibson pickups. So it's a really nice sounding guitar. It's a Chinese built one, but it's built really, really well. And it has a polyurethane finish, so it's not that nice nitrocellulose thin finish, but it's really well built. It's very stable. It stays in tune very, very well. And it sounds great, and it plays great. So really nothing negative to say about this guitar at all. There's two things, though, that are kind of niggles. The neck is a 50s style neck, so it's like a baseball bat. It's big, thick, and fat. So that's I'll get to in a sec. That and the fact that this is a Carina wood guitar, right? So Carina is kind of funny. Carina is a made-up name that Gibson gave to the wood from the African black limba tree, but they call their guitars Carina. So Carina is like it's kind of like mahogany, but it's a little bit. It's actually a fair amount lighter. So this guitar is pretty light, and the body is particularly very light. But we have a maple neck on here, a very thick, fat, heavy maple neck with a big headstock on it. So it's really neck heavy. So I would play this out once in a while, and if I didn't have a strap that had a lot of abrasion on it, if you will, that was fairly coarse on the lower side, this thing would just neck dive, fall down to the floor. So kind of funny. Those are the only negatives I have on this guitar, and they're just, especially the neck is not a negative. It's just a feature that you may or may not like. So the Flying V as a model was designed in 1957. It was one of Ted McCarty, who was the president of Gibson at the time, one of his many contributions to the company. Some were very successful, some were not so much. And the Flying V was designed along with two other kind of radically shaped guitars to try to compete with the, which was still a then radical-looking Fender Stratocaster. So the Flying V, the Moderne, and the Futura were all designed in 1957. The Flying V and the Futura went into production in 1958. The Futura was then renamed the Explorer. So we had a Flying V and Explorer were put into production in 1958, and they were like a bomb. They did not sell. They had to really push the dealers to even take them at all. So the Explorer, I think, might have done slightly better, but the Flying V, between 58 and 59, they only made like 100 of them, and so they discontinued it in 1959. They did make a few more from leftover parts in 1963. But very, very limited production on those original Flying Vs. So fast forward a little bit to 1967. Lonnie Mack was a pretty popular guitar player. Jimi Hendrix, of course, was wildly popular, and Albert King was big popular. So the three of them were all playing Flying Vs, or Jimi Hendrix played a Strat primarily, but he was singing with a Flying V once in a while too. So they reintroduced the Flying V as a model in 1967. And ever since then, it goes in and out of production. They'll bring it back for a year or two, discontinue it, bring it back for a year or two. But this one is an Epiphone, and I just think it's a well built, really nice guitar. So I'll let you run through some of the sounds. This is the neck pickup. We bring in both pickups. Bring in just the bridge pickup. So it's got that little bit thicker sound of the 57 Classic that I really like. I think it's a really good sound. It's not too thin or ice picky. Now I've got these set fairly the distance away from the strings just to really weaken the output a little bit of the guitar because that's just the sound that I wanted out of it. I was going for more of an Albert King vibe with this guitar, and it's that's it. It's a great guitar, and that's why I own a Flying V after all these decades. It's a great guitar. It's a 2011 Chinese-built Epiphone Flying V, and upgraded with 57 Classic pickups. And that's what I know. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Thanks. Have a great day.